In March 1945, one bridge changed the entire outcome of World War II. The Germans tried everything to destroy it. They failed, and that failure cost them the war. The Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen wasn't supposed to matter. It was just another railway crossing over the Rhine River. Nothing special, nothing strategic. But on March 7, 1945, American troops stumbled onto something the German High Command thought was impossible: a bridge, still standing, still intact, and completely undefended. What happened next became one of the most important moments in military history. Let me take you back to early 1945. Germany was losing. Everyone knew it. The Soviets were crushing them from the east, the Americans and British were pushing from the west. And there was one thing standing between the Allies and total victory: the Rhine River. This wasn't just any river. The Rhine was Germany's natural fortress. It was wide, it was fast, it was deadly. Crossing it meant certain death for thousands of soldiers. The Germans knew this, so they had a plan: destroy every single bridge before the Allies could use them. Every single one. By March 1945, they had already blown up bridge after bridge. The Allied commanders were going crazy trying to figure out how to get across. They were planning massive amphibious assaults, building pontoon bridges under fire, losing men by the hundreds just trying to get a foothold on the other side. General Eisenhower himself said whoever captured a bridge across the Rhine would go down in history, but nobody actually thought it would happen. The Germans were too thorough, too desperate. They weren't going to let a single bridge fall into enemy hands. On the morning of March 7th, the 9th Armored Division was pushing through the German countryside. They weren't expecting much, just another day of chasing a broken, retreating army. Their job was simple: reach the Rhine, secure the West Bank, wait for orders. Lieutenant Karl Timmermann was leading a company of men through the hills above the town of Remagen. Cold, tired, ready to find a place to dig in for the night. Then one of his men spotted something through the fog hanging over the river. A bridge, standing, not destroyed, not even damaged. At first, nobody believed it. They thought it was a trap, or maybe they were seeing things. Bridges didn't survive this late in the war, not in Germany, not with the Wehrmacht in full retreat, but there it was, the Ludendorff Bridge, black steel arching across the Rhine, railway tracks still in place. And the craziest part? German soldiers were walking across it, moving supplies, retreating troops, acting like they had all the time in the world. Timmermann radioed his commander. Brigadier General William H. Hogue couldn't believe what he was hearing. A standing bridge at Remagen? He told Timmermann to get down there, fast, see if it was real, and if it was, take it before the Germans woke up and blew it to pieces. The Americans moved quickly but carefully. They descended into the town of Remagen, watching the bridge the entire time, waiting for it to explode. Because that's what was supposed to happen. The Germans had explosives on every bridge. That was standard procedure. Blow it the second the enemy gets close. Don't let them take it intact. But as the Americans got closer, the bridge was still there, still standing. And the Germans on the other side seemed confused, disorganized, like they didn't know what to do. Here's what the Americans didn't know. The Germans were supposed to blow that bridge hours ago. Captain Willy Bratke was in charge of Remagen's defenses. He had orders, clear orders: destroy the bridge before the Americans arrive. But there was a problem. Retreating German troops were still using it. Thousands of soldiers, tanks, equipment, all streaming across to escape the American advance. And the local Nazi commander refused to blow it while German soldiers were still crossing. He kept saying, "Wait, just wait a little longer. Let our men get across first." Bratke was furious. He knew the Americans were coming. He knew what would happen if they captured the bridge. But he couldn't disobey a direct order from a superior officer. So he waited and waited and watched as precious hours slipped away. By the time the Americans appeared on the hills above Remagen, Bratke knew he was out of time. He ordered his engineers to prepare the demolition charges. Now, immediately. Blow the bridge before the Americans get any closer. The German engineers ran onto the bridge. They checked the wiring. The explosives were in place. Everything was ready. They just needed to push the detonator. One push, that's all it would take. Down in the town, Lieutenant Timmermann and his men were moving fast. They could see Germans running around on the bridge, working on something, and they knew exactly what it meant. The bridge was about to blow. They had minutes, maybe seconds. Timmermann's men spread out. They started firing at the Germans on the bridge, trying to disrupt whatever they were doing. Machine gun fire ripped across the river. Mortar shells exploded near the bridge supports. The German engineers dropped to the ground. Some of them ran. Others kept working on the detonator. Then it happened. A massive explosion. The bridge shook. Smoke and debris filled the air. The Americans' hearts sank. They were too late. The bridge was gone. But when the smoke cleared, something impossible appeared. The bridge was still standing, damaged, shaking, but still there. The explosion had only taken out part of the roadway on the eastern side. The main structure was intact. The Germans had failed to destroy their own bridge. Nobody knows exactly why the demolition failed. Some say the explosives were old and weak. Others say the engineers didn't have time to set them properly. Some historians think retreating German troops cut the wires by accident while crossing. Whatever the reason, the bridge was still there, and the Americans weren't going to waste the opportunity. General Hoge gave the order, "Take the bridge, now, before the Germans can try again." Lieutenant Timmermann looked at his men. They were exhausted, low on ammunition, but they understood what this meant. This was their chance to end the war faster, save thousands of lives, make history. Timmermann turned to his company. He didn't give a big speech. He just said, "Follow me." And then he ran onto the bridge, straight toward the German side. His men followed, running across exposed steel and wooden planks, no cover, no protection, just open bridge with the Rhine River rushing beneath them. Timmermann reached the eastern bank, still alive, still moving. His men spread out and started securing the area. More Americans poured across behind them, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Trucks, tanks, artillery, everything the army could throw across that bridge. The Germans on the eastern side were in shock. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. American troops in Germany, across the Rhine, across a bridge that should have been destroyed hours ago. Captain Bratke tried to organize a counterattack, but it was too late. More Americans were crossing every minute. His small force of exhausted German soldiers couldn't stop them. Within hours, the Americans had established a bridgehead on the eastern bank, a foothold in the heart of Germany. When news reached German high command, Hitler went insane. He demanded to know how this happened. How could a bridge survive? How could his engineers fail? He ordered everyone involved to be found and executed. Captain Bratke was sentenced to death in absentia. The engineers who failed to blow the bridge were court-martialed. Some were shot. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The Americans had their bridge. And they weren't letting go. For the next 10 days, thousands of American troops poured across the Ludendorff Bridge. The Germans tried everything to destroy it. They sent bombers. They sent artillery. They even sent frogmen underwater to plant explosives on the supports. Nothing worked. The Americans defended that bridge like their lives depended on it. Because they did. The German Air Force launched over 300 sorties trying to bomb the bridge. American anti-aircraft guns shot most of them down. The few bombs that hit the bridge weren't enough to collapse it. Engineers worked around the clock repairing damage, reinforcing weak points, keeping it standing. Hitler sent his last remaining reserves to try and recapture the bridge. Elite units, SS troops, his best soldiers. They threw themselves at the American bridgehead, and they were slaughtered. The Americans had too many men now, too much equipment. The bridgehead was growing stronger every day. Then, on March 17th, 10 days after its capture, the Ludendorff Bridge finally gave up. The structure had been damaged too many times, weakened by bombs and artillery, strained by thousands of tons of equipment rolling across it. At 3 in the afternoon, with a groan of twisting metal, the bridge collapsed into the Rhine. 28 American engineers were on the bridge when it fell. They died trying to keep it standing. But by then, it didn't matter. The Americans had already built pontoon bridges across the river. They had their bridgehead. They had their foothold in Germany. The Ludendorff Bridge had done its job. The capture of the Remagen Bridge changed everything. What was supposed to be a months-long battle to cross the Rhine turned into a 10-day sprint. The Germans couldn't recover. They couldn't push the Americans back. They couldn't even slow them down. Within weeks, American forces were driving deep into Germany. The bridgehead at Remagen allowed them to bypass heavily defended areas, to outflank German positions, to cut off entire armies. The war that might have lasted until summer was over by May. Historians still argue about how many lives the Remagen Bridge saved. Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. The planned Rhine crossing operations would have been massive, bloody, like D-Day but across a river. Instead, a single bridge and a handful of brave soldiers made all of that unnecessary. Lieutenant Karl Timmermann became a national hero. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. His men received medals and commendations. General Hoge was promoted. But the real heroes were the 28 engineers who died when the bridge finally collapsed. They gave their lives to keep it standing just a little bit longer. Today, the towers of the Ludendorff Bridge still stand on both sides of the Rhine. The bridge itself is gone, but those towers remain as a memorial, a reminder of the day a bridge changed the course of history, a reminder that sometimes the smallest accidents create the biggest opportunities, and a reminder that a few brave soldiers running across a damaged bridge can end a war. The Germans had one job: destroy every bridge. They destroyed dozens, hundreds, but they missed one, and that one bridge cost them everything.